Okay guys, today we're going to cover one of the most well-known passes, the Toreando, but this time we're going to look at how to chain it in NOGI, how to pass my opponent here. Stay tuned for all the details. Welcome back to the channel guys. Today we're going to cover some passing in NOGI. Now before we get started, if you're passing the open guard, it would be best advised to mix it with different passing systems. For example, leg drags, head quarter passing, high step passing, working with J-point, Toreandos, knee slices, all the stuff together. Today we're going to focus just on one of those elements. It's going to be NOGI Toreando passes, yeah? But my best advice is to mix it. I'm not going to take the credit for that. There's a beautiful DVD out there with Gordon Ryan mixing all these passes. Today we're going to look at the system Toreando pass. Now a few things changed with the NOGI as opposed to gi. First off, I want to get my opponent from a seated guard to a supine guard. Now, there's a few ways we can go about this. We can lift their ankles, get them back on their back. We can combine an ankle and a shoulder to get them back. We can just easily push on both shoulders, frame on the head, or we could try and chase my opponent's back. Imagine me grip fighting, trying to go to Sandro's back. He will put his back on the mat by himself in order to prevent my backtake. Now, whichever way you get your partner, supine, yeah, that's where we're going to start from. Now, I'm going to get my partner in a supine position. Now in the gi, it's easy for me to control the pants, we can pass. Now the grips here are a bit different. We can push on the knees, but that's a pretty bad grip because Sandro will have a lot of ability to pommel, control my arms. So if I'm controlling the legs, I prefer to push on the shins and imagine bringing his heels to his butt to keep some pressure. I'm not leading in with one of my legs, I'm just staying here putting pressure. Now, we're going to work with a different frame today. Instead of controlling the legs, which is a viable option, we're going to control the hip, yeah? But not with my hand. If I'm pinning the hip with my hand, as so, and controlling the other knee, like so, it will be easy for Sandro to pommel his left leg over, push on my shoulder, pommel the leg in, or to get a knee shield in between, or to get his knee on top of my elbow and start pushing away and framing away. So we're going to have a better grip than this. As opposed to using my hand, I'm going to put the entire length of my elbow alongside his hip, controlling his ribs and pushing it all the way in. My other hand is controlling the knee, yeah? And my head will be very important here, because if my head is up high, if Sandro is flexible, he can still get his left foot back in between and start pummeling back. So my head should be at the very least around his hip, but better yet would be to point my head towards his far side shoulder and put some pressure. Now as we enter with the grip, if I go straight into his guard and he pushes his knee in, he might just like turn my shoulder inwards. So what I prefer to do is to get a little bit of an angle, just like when I would enter for a collar tie. Now if I get this angle, I can step out of his guard, or I can like cross step and step. So usually I'm controlling, trying to work, get a cross step, and then I get this pin from the side. So I dive in and trying to get it towards his knee line. Yeah, he's usually committing to the side of the guard. The best thing to do is to put some tension on the legs first. So it's not all wobbly, just put some tension. And if I put tension, he will be easier to move around. As I step, I come in. Now my head, I will put my head on his shoulder. And now it's important that I tripod up and have a good angle with my hips. If my hips are too far over my chest, Sandro will reverse me, sweep me. If I'm too high here, he will throw me over. If I'm too low, let's get a bit this way please. If I'm too low, I'm kind of sprawling myself out and falling to the mat. So I should have a good pressure here, leaning into Sandro, into my frames, without getting flipped over. Shouldn't leave my head dangling here, because he might enter for a guillotine or a different submission, yeah? So my elbow is in, my head is on his chest, and my hand is on his knee. As I'm walking myself higher up towards Sandro's head, let's turn a bit. So I want to imagine myself walking up around 11 o'clock, to pass the guard. Now instead of going chest to chest immediately, I will then walk him back to pass his hips. So we're entering, framing. Usually Sandro will frame on my shoulder or get any kind of frame, and I will just let him carry my pressure here. This hand is going to push his knee back as I walk in, walk back and pin his hip here. Controlling his hip and pinning him here before I work my way up for the pin. Let's turn more this side so we can see the handwork. So I'm getting his supine, controlling pressure, then a step, enter here. My elbow is in, my head positioning is in. The only reason I'm keeping my head up a little bit is for the audio guys. And my hand is controlling his knee here and trying to cup it inwards. Now Sandro's leg is usually stronger than my hand. So if I push down and he pushes up to keep this space closed, he will usually be stronger. So instead of me pushing with my arm, I'm gonna lock my arm and walk with my weight back. So look at the difference between me using my arm, or me framing with the arm, and then walking Sandro's leg back and passing in the socket of his hip to go here. The more he tights up, the more he becomes a ball, and I can move him around a bit freely as I push his hips down. Yeah. Now another thing that can occur is if we look at the frames. Yeah. So we're trying to get him supine, trying to control the legs, pass, pin. So this is the first pin we want to go to. As he frames on my shoulder and I want to keep pushing towards him, it's hard for me to break those frames. I could just chill here, camp here to make him carry my weight, but it's better yet to extend his frame. So instead of pushing in, I'm gonna keep on walking backwards as I would do with the leg, and then his frames will become extended more and more and more and more here, and then it's harder for him to push here, controlling the hip, and then I'll deal with that, yeah? As we get here, his hip is pointed towards that way, so if he wants to re-guard, I'm rather around his hip, as opposed to being immediately chest to chest, giving him all this space to re-guard again. So that's very important. So we have pushing the leg in, we have to be aware of head positioning, frames, his pommel, and his frames. And also something very important is why I don't go to knee on belly immediately, because we can do old school Toreando passes. And we could just try and like step and go to knee on belly, which I would prefer in the gi, or from the same pressure here, as we walk, start camping, push him back, and then pommel my knee in between and pin him. If I can pin him a bit more on his hip, so it's pointing that way, it's a bit safer for me, but we have to be aware with knee on belly because we're not controlling the gi and the rules are different. I'm going to show you once what I mean. If Sandro would pass me into knee on belly with this same pass, so if he goes to knee on belly and he does have a good control of the gi and it's more slippery, before he settles in and controls the crossface, I could try and wrestle up here with a single leg, whether he's standing or low. Or what I really like to do is as he has the momentum to pass, I'm just bumping him forward and inverting with 50-50 to start chasing the legs. Pommel the other leg, going to 411. Tons of reasons why knee on belly would give you more points. It's a better position in the gi, but things change in no-gi. So there is the option there to, as we pass, pommel in for the knee on belly, but you have to be aware of those risks, the single leg, the leg entries. So I prefer to walk the hips down and pin him there, as opposed to going to knee on belly. Now there's a ton of different options we can do with controlling the legs, spinning to north-south. Yeah, I'm going to cover that in a different video because today I just want to cover this specific pass and not go into high step or into loose passing or into the north-south. Just these basic Toreandos. The final is if he starts extending his leg combined with his frames. Let's go this way, please. Then he's blocking my route to the outside. So he's seated, I get him supine, start putting pressure, start stepping to the side. So I go 1, 2. From there I get my frames in, push my head. Now if he starts extending the bottom leg, trying to hook me or block me, and it's harder for me to go outside. So he has the frame, and he has this block, or he's trying to hook my leg or my hip or anything in between. That's when I no longer start passing on the outside. That's when I go back to the inside. This becomes my underhook. I will start passing here with a basic knee cut pass. Yeah? If his knee comes back in between, I'm gonna go leg weave or smash pass or anything you like to do. As I said, it's best to combine this with different passes, but I just want to show you that the pass is on the outside, the Toreando, and if he's blocking my route to the outside, I will go back with my knee, cut in for the inside for knee cut pass, or finally, same principle applies. As I'm here, he's extending his leg, he's blocking. I could, instead of going with the knee cut with this side, I could go here and pin him here with my legs, cross face, and leg staple, pass, or settle. So let's just keep it with that. Thanks a lot of information already. No-gi Toreandos, pinning, pushing my opponent's hip and knee back, walking him back to pin the hip, yeah, and then some variations, some details to mind. Thank you guys for watching, see you in the next one. Oos.